When it comes to AI, I can be a bit of a party pooper. So, whilst I talk a lot about AI and the advantages and the benefits that it presents, quite often when I speak with owners, I am one of the reasons they end up slowing down. Not because what I'm telling them is wrong, um, but it highlights a lot of the work that needs to be done at a foundational level to truly implement a technology like AI. So, whilst it could be easy for me to go in and propose, present another cool image tool, video tool, it's not normally the route I take because quite often it just means you're fragmenting your intelligence. So, part of it then lives in that tool, and the context then doesn't go back into anything. Where you can get away with that is if you directly upsell the the content that's generated. So you're in a kind of a creative industry, for example, and you use a tool to generate images, videos, logos, and branding, and you then sell that on to make a margin. That's fine. I get it. Now, it's not to say you can't do any of that stuff if you implement it right, but that's a very quick way to, I guess, get a return on that investment. However, if you solely go down that route, then what you're going to do is split that context, so it becomes harder for it to feed back into what would essentially become your primary AI. So the way I talk about it quite often is that get that foundational bit right. So make sure your data is right, make sure you understand your processes, make sure you know who's got access to what. So when you do turn on AI, you're not creating chaos. What you're also then doing is laying a very solid foundation upon which you can add these other shiny tools, as long as there's an element of context being shared back into what is your primary AI, because that then gives you somewhere to go back and say, well, what worked, what didn't, where did we make money, where did we waste money, and you can't always do that within the tools that provide those shiny outputs. So I get the appeal of using them, but if you use only them without a real strategy behind it, they become nothing more than that kind of vending machine that I kind of speak about, in the sense that you put in a prompt, you get this kind of great output, and you fire it out or whatever. If you make money on that, great. I understand why there's kind of interest in doing that, but if you don't, and that's not necessarily what you monetize, all you're doing is then splitting your intelligence further, and there's no context going back to that primary system. So if you think about it as a new employee, you've then got a bit of a project that you've ran on the side, that yet that main employee doesn't understand what's happened, what worked and what didn't.